Today in the program, we dey look inside one report where Budget Advocacy Network been do outside dem not say from 2019. Between 2019 and 2020, the country public debt reached over 33 billions. Well, as way for help the country address the development challenge them where the country they get, this make different organization them wey na Budget Advocacy Network, Christian Aid, Action Aid, Oxfam, then been come together, Usai, then been launch one campaign for talk to donor partner them for cancel the debt them where Salon been get. But they been launch this campaign after reports, Usai, then put together the different debts them where Salon gets. And according to the reports where the organization they are so been pulled and say as of the end of 2020, the total public debt where Salon gets now over 30 trillion when 3 billion United States dollar. And according to the report again, Budget Advocacy and then partner then say this debt big past the entire 2019, 2020 and 2021 government budget in terms of GDP. Well, for sake of them concern, they also make this them partner organization, they also be launch a campaign. Who said and they talk to donor partner them where Salon owe them debts they also for cancel the debts them. But before we can look at how on a reach to that level, say, let we come together as partner that we don't work around budget issues them for launch a campaign for then donor partner they also get for list earlier where Salon get for pay them money they also cancel then debts they also. Mr. Kamara, take we through the different methodology they wanna use for put together this report we say between 2019 and 2020 Salon debts don't reach over 30 trillion.
Thank you very much. I think before I go to how we get the information in police report, a good listener know say first of all debt not say a bad thing. We government a good trust for do development activity into a bad thing. Now one of the physical tool that we government they use for do a lot of development projects them. Firstly, the Minister of Finance can do what they call debt bulletin. So all the data we use, we just go take them from that report state. What we try for do is we now try for give the report a human face in terms of their resources they are so we will go for pay. If then cancel with debt, what the resources they are going to do to the education sector, what the resources they are also going to do to the health sector. So for we are concerned it's about the stage where debt don't reach. Currently, without high risks from the debt sustainability analysis. So what we'll do, we just go to the Minister of Finance website, we put together all that information there and try for give a human face for let people and citizens, for let with development partner go for pay let and citizens on the need for let them cancel Sierra Leone debt. And for we, now for a couple of reasons. Firstly, we don't see where the, for example, debt services don't increase away from the data we collect from Minister of Finance. It clearly the show say it don't go up to 43% as of 2020. And for we, that is shrink the space for government for provide services. And we are concerned here is now for the health and education sector.
You say that's not a bad thing for any government for able for run a state, but this BNTM again, where you say development partner them been cancelled debt for Salon, and not too long ago, NASEF don't come together as partner organization then say the way how Salon don't accumulate debt. So now for come together, launch a campaign, talk to them, donor partner there so for cancel then debts there so where Salon don't get. If the country don't reach to the stage, Usai owner as organization they come together, talk to donor partner them for cancel debts way bigger past 2019 budget, 2020 budget, and 2021 budget. In terms of budgetary allocation, una don't they supervise government? How do they allocate budgets to different programs and sector them? What does this really mean, Mr. Bakar?
Well, first of all, we also need to understand where we are on the debt situation. And we also need to understand what's not the driver, what's not the factor them, wherein we don't reach at a high debt risks. There are a number of issues that we also need for looked into. Firstly, we will all go agree with me that in 2015 we will get a twin shock. We will get the Ebola and we'll get the fall in the price of the iron ore. Of course, what's that mean to the economy at that particular point in time? The economy shrink by 15.5%, which means say it reduced the number of economic activities where they go on in the country. And the number of economic activities they reduce, it gets implication on so many sectors. It even get implication on the revenue, where also get implication in terms of the ability for government to able to generate resources for pay. Fast forward, we also get the COVID. And because of the COVID, we all know what happened. So there are some external factors that will affect the economy in 2 or 3 different times then of we country. And then they affect the economy greatly. And at a particular stage now, which debts don't go at a very high distress, we also need to understand why the debt they go up. What are some of the factors them in Leone's term? For example, if government go take loan, like for example the Freetown City Hall, then take that loan then in 2017, and then give a grace period of 10 years. That 10 years is enough for pay, and that building they will go for begin pay for 2027. And where they take debt, the currency where you take now they pay. If you look at the exchange rate at 2017, and we know from 2017 even to now, the exchange rate don't go up. We might not tell what's going to be the exchange rate by 2027. So the exchange rate, the increase in the exchange rate now, another factor they make would that the increase in Williams term. So if you go take a debt, see at that particular point in time, they say the dollar na 500,000 euros. Then by the time you go for pay, if you go for pay now at a rate of 1,500, it means in Leone terms, the value of the debt in Leone terms don't increase by three times. So all of them factors also affect the way we debt the increase. But we Leone concern get for a look at a number of issues. Then firstly, this issue of public debt and the way it increase, it affect the ordinary citizens. And we concern here is it's about how government group will get the space for use that resources today for ensure say ordinary citizens get access to basic services to them like health and education.
So looking at that space that we say one of the advocates for, I remember Banna being one pan the organization that we been joined the Jubilee campaign in 2014 for us, then same donor partners.
Absolutely,
yeah. For council debts, and then we've been seeing at the end of the IMF and World Bank being cancelled some debts then after the campaign and the way on a be mounts. Now I don't come with another campaign for us then same donor partners here for council salon debts them. But when you look at the reasons then we can make governments and can go into debts now for ensure see then can one go advocate then one can for example improve on infrastructure that in countries them and provide basic amenities for them people them. Let me just take that case study, an example of the 2014 campaign where on have been launched, where we've been seeing council debts them. Then debts in the way the donor partners have been cancelled at that time. Now, whose developments been coming at the country where the donor partners have been still in council and debts in the.
You know, in fact, that particular point in there, now be IMF will be target, and now be doing the Ebola, and we all be know what will be happening during the Ebola will be really affect we. You know. The issue around that particular 10 day is around government forget the, as I mentioned, the space for invest. Where did they cancel the debt? No mean say they can't give money. So if you get for pay 20,000 euros and you need 20,000 euros for provide health care. So if they say let not pay that money there, that means say that money we again I will be supposed for pay. You get the ability for user now. So it being utilized well for the citizens them. When that make we on campaign we focus on not to just debt cancellation, a transparent and accountable debt cancellation. We want to see how government will be more transparent, how they will be more accountable on the acquisition and the management and reporting of public debt issues them.
So over the years, how you could describe the issues we get for do with accountability in terms of then debt way the country can go take?
Well, I think the government need to do more. Already, if you look at the Minister of Finance website, it gets a lot of information where they tell you overall how much debt government will acquire, where the which sector the resources to go, how much government they pay on debt services, who that government will pay. So there are some information on the Minister of Finance website. I think we need to do more to ensure say this information citizens get access to them, because even when we engage certain stakeholders, there are a number of concerns. For example, one concern they around the aspect of we not know where government will take debt. Now for time for opinion on how they can all they can begin. It's about how government will also ensure say even at the time of acquisition of debt, there are some level of information to the citizens then, so that we are aware, because the debt the government will take, they take out on behalf of the people of Sierra Leone. So therefore, the citizens will be aware when government will take debt and for which purpose. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, the public debt bulletin gets comprehensive information in terms of all government debt we don't take, and for Muda, and how when we go for pay, and how long go for take for pay.
Let me come to the Ministry of Finance, then Deputy Director for Public Debt, because now the ministry then they in charge for ensure say they're able to manage the money where the country gets, and also in departments where they can talk from. Now then go for tell listeners them how the country reach. So that kind of stage they way like Budget Advocacy Network and other body them they call now on we do not partner them now the country for ensure say they cancel some of the debts them where them we don't take on behalf of the country. Once my one for welcome the Deputy Director of Public Debts now the Ministry of Finance, where now Charles Conte. Good morning again and welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning.
Well, as you know, we did talk on the program this morning, but Budget Advocacy Network reported they don't pull now, they don't launch a campaign. They ask donor partners them for let them go get a debt relief for Salon, because they cannot see between 2019 and 2020 the country public debts go up way past 30 trillion euros, where that's about 3 billion United States dollar. Just start for tell listeners and first we go for a look at waiting on the happen at that particular department. But for today, we want to focus on this report where we see Bandon Pulnado. Waiting on the factors that will lead the country forget a debt between 2019 and 2020 where surmounts over 30 trillion loans. How the country reach under?
Yeah, first of all, on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, we really want to tell thank you to BAN. Of course, you get a coalition of CSOs, NGOs, we support BAN for produce this report, and Christian Aid, Action Aid, Oxfam, and the rest. What I want to say from the word go, now with data BAN use, and Ministry of Finance under the leadership and direction of the Financial Secretary, don't they engage with them, civil society organization, for deepening transparency and accountability. So we work with BAN, they ask for data, we give them data, of course, all waiting and the report on, then take up from the 2020 public debt bulletin. But you want to put into perspective so that the family out there will really understand when we talk about debt. Yes, of course, we debt don't reach 30 trillion end of 2020. But we can get to understand, say, it talk about the stock of debt. And that debt, they not a one-day debt. Now debt will span over 40 years. So when they say debt at a point in time, now all the debts that we don't take for over 40 years. So we get to understand, say, not to one day debt, now debt will don't take over 40 years. So now accumulate, you don't accumulate.
So
debt.
how come the reports they say between 2019 and 2020?
Now I think say probably now they put not to that exactly the report say. It say as at end of 2020, government in debt reached 30 trillion. Of course, now both domestic and external debt. I mean, I saw the report debt. So it not mean to say now the debt we don't take today or inside 2020, now debt over time. So I have a categorical state here saying now debt over time. It's over 40 years. We don't accumulate this debt, even though we get debt cancellation in the past. But let me say this to the family. When they report debt, you not just they look at the face value.
Yeah, because now that's not the question I ask. If debt cancellation it don't be done day over the time, so how come then debt here according to you starts for the past 40 years?
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's how they try to explain. When they look at debt, not just they look at the face value, okay, the nominal value of the debt, okay. For instance, if let me say we get two people then go for go take debt in a bank. The one person go for go take 1 million euros. Then, but in salary, na 500,000 leons, okay? If you go to the bank, you say one debt, okay, then he assess in capacity for lay, he pay the debt. If they get the debt, it means na 2 months salary because the debt na 1 million. So, and in salary na 500. It can take 2 months for pay that debt day. Not so from in salary. Then you get this person, you go back na bank, you go take 20 million debt. But in salary, you say na 40 million leons. Okay? In fact, when in the paying debt, now just half of his salary he use for pay that day within 1 month. So when they look at them, not just the value of the debt, even though they all go take 1 million leons in debt is small, versus they all go take 20 million leons in debt big. But look at his capacity for pay the debt. From his salary na 40 million leons, now half of his salary they take pay that debt. You don't forget important. But now go take 1 million leon. Now over 2 months you go pay the debt. So if they look at the debt over your capacity, when they look at debt, they look at debt over the capacity of the country for repay. And we want to talk about 1 or 2 things. The report is good, and we support this report because now we give them the data. And of course, now a campaign, not a national campaign, a global campaign.
So the report reflective of our data?
It reflective of the data, but certain things and the way now that make we there to follow, put them right, and let people understand waiting at that and what they talk about that. So as I say, the report say we debt don't reach 74% of GDP, and it's not unique to Sierra Leone. We have to understand. Waiting the report not captured, they're not bringing regional and continental perspective. As we speak, Ghana, the almighty Ghana, as of 2020, the total debt to GDP now 85%.
Mr. Conte, you want let we focus this conversation on Salone because this report will bring out some of the issues there. So now based on our data, we'll get on our website and a Salone we talk about. Now let we look at the Ministry of Finance. Every year, they put together a budget where government they use for run the state. And according to this report, this over 30 trillion debts where the government of Salone get a big past 2019, 2020, and 2021 budgets. If the Ministry of Finance get them kind debts there, so where the government gets and when they run a budget, how are they able to manage some of the issues them so that the sector them will they do budget allocation for every year they not go starve?
Exactly that, and that they have try for talk. We get to understand the nature of debt. And this current campaign, as I say, not to Sierra Leone no more. You get civil society and organization abroad. In most African countries, we also the just liquidating ban they do themselves they do it. Because not to something where we just unique to Sierra Leone. All low income countries, even beyond Africa, countries are faced with this situation. Let's just bring it to perspective with regional peers. I mean, they talk about Ghana just now. Okay, Ghana has 79 and 78.9% as of 2020. Then public debt to GDP. Gambia na 85%. Rwanda na 71.3%. Senegal na 68.8%. Most countries will be get debt relief in the late 90s and 2000s.
One wants to need to compare then country the economy to that of Salone.
That is why I say when they talk about they're not to just debt as in face value. We talk about 30 trillion leons. Now debt to GDP. Because you they take the but what's important, how you they pay the debt, you get the capacity for paying. Now I make a big example about the possibly get 1 million debt, where now 500,000 loans and they pay for month. We go take 2 months for pay that debt. Versus somebody we go get that we now 20 million loans and then they pay 40 million and 40 millions. We now just half of his salary go take pay the debt. So look at debt not only from a face value. So let me explain this.
Okay, you can explain.
Well, they don't explain how the country reached Sudan, but in as much as you say that over 30 trillion loans debts the way the country gets, not to think will like happen between 2019 and 2020. Nothing will happen, but 40 years ago. Now, no money, then no more than can just add how the country they get the debts and they add them together. But if we no want for get the burden for look at the debts that happen over 40 years, let me just level them for the current administration from 2018 to 2021. Let me say from the document they were seen at the table now waiting at the debts where the country take inside the past 4 years where we not go add 40-year debts back.
Okay, let me just come back to, I talk about debt relief, debt cancellation. You get two types of debt cancellation. Then they either cancel the debt as at the point in time, the stock of debt, or then they cancel the debt service where they pay. I talk about debt relief. In 2006, we Sierra Leone reached what they call EP completion point. Now the 10 and then down the way, then be the globally, we poor countries then they be cancel them. In 2006, Sierra Leone debt now be 1.7 billion external debt because EPIC initiative, MDI, they focus only on external debt. As at end of 2006, with debt now be 1.7 trillion billion dollars. And what happened? They reduced about 2/3 of that debt. We now 1.2 billion. So after 2006 to 2007, when they canceled 1.2 trillion, not to all the external debt they canceled, of the 1.7 billion, now only 1.2 billion they canceled. There was about $523 million debt we been needed in external debt. So not to all the debt they canceled.
So now all the money they add pan this debt we reach to over 30 trillion.
So from 2006, Sierra Leone done the contract debt steadily.
Now all the money they don't add up to this amount, Mr. Conte.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
But according to band report they talk about the name and 2019-2020 public debt bulletin.
Now how they want to present the report, but what they say from 2006 we get debt cancellation. We debt was about $525 million, but from 2006 government only take debt up to this point. So this debt when at 30 trillion leons, now a debt over 40 years.
Well, so now that make ask 1 minute, Khadija. Now that make I ask just now, if we don't want to put the burden on the people and for understand, you said they're now over 40-year debts and we reach to 30 trillion leons. So if you do a quick calculation, waiting at the debts where the country don't take inside the past 4 years, because when I don't they publish. For let the people know that where they visit on our website for no waiting at the debts where the country gets inside the past 4 years.
And accordingly, Ministry of Finance, every year we don't put out public debt bulletin. And as I say, the report we ban use, this is the bulletin, not 20 debt bulletin they use, where they publish. It is clear every year we are so transparent, we're so accountable when it comes to public debt information. There is a bulletin where they capture the entire external debt and domestic debt, whether the debts come up from.
So let me
just read to you exactly the total debt situation from 2017 to 2020. As at end of 2017, we total debt in leons now been 16 trillion leons. Okay, and 2018 it moved to 22 trillion leons. And what happened? Where the debt moved from 16 trillion to 22 trillion leons. Remember, the past administration, we contract what we call domestic arrears. This now money where they be auto suppliers and contractors. We don't do, we don't supply goods, and of course they don't perform and contract. We government not be able to pay. Then before 2018. So when this new administration come into power, then decide for audit then debts and day, then verify then domestic arrears and day. And where audit service verify the arrears, then put out a report. And the total verified domestic arrears, it come to a total of 3.2 trillion leons. Now in audit service verify. So, and will not be the report as part of the total debt. So because of transparency, we bring them now as part of domestic debt. So the movement from 16 trillion in 2017 to the end of 2018, we come to 22 trillion. Now that debt, that 3.2 trillion, now we add.
Mr. Conte.
So that's not one reason why the debt moved. And let me just finish. From 2018 to 2019, it moved to 26 trillion. And by end of 2020, don't move to 30 trillion. And there are so many factors that back out the top way responsible for this.
Earlier, before we start the conversation, I ask you if the data way on a feed ban and then partner them for put together this report is reflective on the report. You say yes, because we they talk mainly on waiting then at the report when from 2019 and 2020 public debt bulletin. So now let me look at from December 2019 to December 2020, the public debt add to 14.69% when a result of domestic borrowing for the government of Salone able for implement the national budget according to within the inside the report or the focus on this morning. So if the government of Salone, they also do domestic borrowing just for able implement the budget for disburse money to different sector them, and also the country gets then kind debt there. So things in a more pressure they go on the economy.
In the whole of Africa, most of the economies, then they run what we call a deficit budget. That is to say that at the end of the day, the total revenue, domestic revenue, with the government then it generates, is not sufficient for them to take care of the expenditure. So there is a gap when your revenue is less than the expenditure. That's Naimeka talk say, unique to Sierra Leone. All of the countries in West Africa, they take debt. They all they run deficits because the total revenue that they generate from taxes and other sources and grants, when you put them together, is less than the total expenditure, recurrent and capital. So what you the result to now for borrow? The only thing where you borrow, you get for spend and well, and waiting government they try for do. So in 2020, the public debt increased by 14.6%, domestic debt by 4%. Okay, waiting account for that. Of course, we borrow for finance the budget because there's a gap.
You figures them way they give this morning, Mr. Conte. It look different to waiting band publish.
No. Nine band published from the bulletin. Maybe not the summary then present. That's why I'm here to explain to the people. The bulletin is right in front of me. We total debt increase from 2019 to 2020 by 14.69%. And domestic debt account for 4% of that increase. The rest are external debt. And the external debt increase not because of borrowing, not because of the borrowing in external debt. You get what they call depreciation of the loans. It affects even if you not borrow. For instance, if you debt now be $1 yesterday, and today na $1. What if the exchange rate depreciates, even though you not borrow any external debt, because you report in domestic currency, the debt it increase. Right. So also that they speak to the increase in public debt.
They come back to the National Coordinator for Budget Advocacy Network, Abubakar Kamara. Mr. Kamara, now we look at page 6 of the report where they talk about multilateral debts by creditors. We get a table there. We list the different creditor them. We na ADB, IFAD, IDB, Badia Bank, World Bank, and other one them. And when I give the breakdown of the money them way the government of Salone owe to them particular organization there, so we're about 78.4%. You don't listen to Mr. Conte. They try for say some of them debts there, so na money the way the government of Salone owe for the past 40 years. And on a report they talk about 2019, 2020, and 2021. Outside the discrepancy then they.
Firstly, debt now over time. So wouldn't Charles say correct? Now accumulation over the years. What we do in this one now we just try for provide justification by just taking from 2016 to 2020 in terms of how much would debt be as of 2016 and how much would debt be as of 2020, all in a bid for just provide justification as to why we all need to come together for ensure say we lobby with good people and follow and cancel debt so that there will be that space for the government invest time on health and education in that transparent manner. The page 6 where you mentioned absolutely correct. Of the debt then we get, the multilateral, when I like the institution we don't call so, now the more we go for pay, and we can pay more now to go for targets for let them cancel debt then. For example, you see like IMF, as of 2020, we go for pay IMF 508 million United States dollars, and of course we die in our 33% of the debt where we owe multilateral institutions. Of course, multilateral institutions them now institution where we get that relationship with like the IMF, World Bank, ADB. So This now follow provide Sierra Leone a picture say of that debt will go for pay. 78.4% now the money they will go for pay to them various institutions. So it they give a guide as to which institution then will for target or will get more impact of itself. So in this case, the institution are the most will go for target. And now that make we campaign, we don't launch an online petition. We want to generate over 100,000 signatories. We want to use them for presenter at the World Bank IMF meetings in October in Washington, D.C. Because most of the meetings, most of the institutions also go day. And of course, we they push we campaign from a transparent and accountable point of view, but all in a bid for ensure say if it happened that the council debts, that space we government get for spend more, we want the government invest more on health and education.
So how certain ban and the other institutions them where the advocates for them do this debt relief BC if they happen for this cry and go able for cancel the debts them for salon for say the government go get for put them on here because already don't cite out education and health, for example, where on one for let them focus. How certain are be safe then cancel and that here improvements going in to sector here?
Absolutely. Now that now the proposal will go for present to the one that we don't go trust to. Of course, whether they cancel debt, then they just cancel debt also. They must put certain criteria. Even in the HIPIC, there are certain criteria where they put. And we now done our proposal based on the fact that, example, the health and education, these are the sectors where every citizen they come in contact with, whether you're poor, and mostly the poor are the one mainly benefit from public schools and public hospitals. So for it, that are the proposal. And we don't give the photo we have to get a human face. For example, the debt we go for pay, the debt servicing for just them multilateral, so that money they if for just the money we pay for debt servicing for 2020 for the multilaterals, that money they pay 3,000 nurses then for 6 years. And of course, if we get more nurses them, what that happen? It will reduce the high patient-nurse ratio. Of course, currently, WHO get a standard where they tell you, say, you forget this number of nurse to this number of patients. Of course, we on it almost times 11 times out a day. But if we get more nurses, then it will reduce that nurse-patient ratio. And of course, that they contribute to human development. So we on target is on the social sector. So now that make they encourage all Sierra Leonean. They are let them sign an online petition. We want to generate over 100,000 signatures from now up to October. So that we'll go talk to good people. And mind you, this campaign not to just in Sierra Leone, we also work with other international institutions. For example, Jubilee Debt Campaign. We work with AFODAD. We also work with various other international institutions. Then we also help you for lobby those institutions for see reason as to why we forget a debt cancellation. And more so, we the focus on the aspect of transparent and accountable debt cancellation process.
So in as much as they call for this debt relief, but also over the years, governments and don't learn any lesson because they can say, if on a normal day, if you want for trust, you they look for say, I go able for pay this debt before you venture into RAM for see you want go trust that kind of debt. Being that Salona a poor country, after the big for letting cancel debt, it clearly shows the country poor. Now that make we want for a big for letting cancel debt because we're not go able for pay then debt here. But from experience, governments and don't really they think for no saying as much as we want for develop we country, but we pose certain invention in the way we go into RAM. We go for look at the state of the country economy, not be a burden for go lends for can put more debts on the country.
In the first place, the one who can lend before they lending money, they assess the capacity, the ability to pay. But also during the course of the process where they pay small, there are certain external factors that can affect you. Just like yours, you go take debt, sometimes you plant your vest, you do hope say where you harvest your vest, you go be down for pay. But then during the course of the year, burden come out, then go eat most of your vest. So they affect your ability for pay. And we now as alone, 2015 already Ebola and the twin shock, it affect the economy. The economy contract by 15.5%. We get the corona now, the economy contract by 2.2%. So it affects the economy. So right now, we have a high risk, even though we pay, but we pay at a very high cost. And that cost they pay, that high cost they pay, that custody could have been used for provide health services, education services. So for we dey look at this from a national perspective in the sense that, and that make we push for a transparent and accountable debt, and we push for ensure say that particular resources, if the good people in council we push for ensure say that resources they really invest in the health and education sector.
All right, continue for the with winner the program. Abubakar Kama, coordinator for Budget Advocacy Network. We come back to Charles Conte, a deputy director, public debt management from the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Conte, from the revelation that we come out inside this particular bulletin, what they talk about today, it clearly shows say then debts there so now a burden to government, and we then debts there so government not able for focus on certain key area them. For example, the total debt service to commercial and bilateral creditor them be amount to $18.54 million as of 2020. And according to Bannon and partner them, they say this amount they will pay salary for additional teachers of 1,500 for 5 years. So if then debts they are not there, it clearly shows a government they put some of them money there so for get additional teachers them into the classroom, and the exchange rate again now one key driver for the increase of then debts there. Authority them na the economy na the finance department. How much una don't work for ensure say una able for put the exchange rate at a cost we not go be a burden to government and serve the Sierra Leonean then?
We there also for support this initiative. And as I say, we are starting a global initiative, not only Sierra Leone, other countries in the sub-region and Africa, don't launch the same initiative. Government don't do well over the years for managed public debt in Sierra Leone. Before 2016, there has been the effect of the position on public debt. Public debt they increase, even if I talk about external debt. External debt now we take foreign currency, they trust in foreign currency, for instance, US dollar. Mm-hmm. So even if we they report the debt, the external debt in leons, even if you not borrow more, because if the exchange rate depreciate, you they report the debt they increase, we they report in leon terms.
That is one. I say the exchange rates na key driver for the increase in external debt service payments, because if the country able keep the exchange rate at a pace where if we government is ready for pay back the money there, so the debts not go increase like how the figures they will there now.
Now that you try to explain. That is one component of waiting the cause debt for increase. And secondly, Bakar talk about Ebola, during the Ebola, because countries then they face serious situation when there is an epidemic. IMF and other global partners, they respond, then they send money, then they trust government so that they go able for contain the economic challenges with the likes of Ebola. In 2014 and 2015, IMF lent Sierra Leone about $150 million just for respond to the shock because GDP collapse, revenue collapse, export collapse. Now the same thing happened during COVID. When COVID happened, so in 2020, IMF lent Sierra Leone over $142 million just for support the economy. People then lose jobs. So all of them factors in they make the debt increase. But what you have to say, external debt not the cheapest. With external debt, the interest rate now less than 2%. And so then that's how they pay over 40 years. You talk about Freetown City Council. Freetown City Council, we contract that debt in 2013 and have $54 million. And we they pay over 40 years. And the interest rate now 0.01%. It's not even 1%. So virtually, let me come. I want to explain so that people will understand the type of debt they talk about. External debt, in average life, now 30-40 years we pay over time. So not to one to the pay. We are here to support ban indeed. I mean, a burden in fact. When before government take that money for go spend per agriculture, spend per education, spend per other factors, they pay debt service. It's a burden, of course. But what would they try for do? The question is, what thing government don't they do for manage public debt in Sierra Leone? Bakanaya, over the past 7 years, we always don't they involve CSOs, civil society, in what we call with DSA, debt sustainability analysis, what they do every year for assess government debt in the medium to long term. We they invite CSOs, we they invite universities. let them come with the increase the space so that they too be part of the process
Mr. Conte,
of
my
discussing
question
public debt.
is the exchange rate now one of the key factor them for make them figures they go up as how then CSOs they report now. Waiting government they do for keep the exchange rate at a pace where be say we then go ready for pay back then debts there so the figures them no go up like how then they now. That's the question I be asked you earlier.
Okay, while I branch into economics now, let me understand say exchange rate. It depends on the country in external competitiveness. Now, import and export. As a country, when you export less than you import, it affects your exchange rate. No say we not they generate loans for go buy goods overseas. Now dollar na foreign currency. And if we capacity for export not enough, and as I say, not unique to Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, Liberia, all of them countries they are challenged because they export less than they import. So it means you get for go out there and borrow. Now that IMF they do. In fact, of this debt service what they pay, you get two components. IMF, the way to make IMF day now for support central banks of government, where you get what we call external sector imbalance. Where you export less than you import, it means you need reserve, you need foreign exchange for support the private sector for later import. But for Sierra Leone, like Ghana, Nigeria, everywhere in Africa, we export not sufficient. What thing they happen? So IMF they trust money to the central bank, and the purpose now for shore up, they call them for shore up your reserve, for increase your reserve, so that enough foreign currency go there where the central bank will pump na the economy. But no country now one country in Africa really when they turn out to
But on the suicide and
surplus.
don't they happen over the years? The central bank don't they come out, they give foreign exchange into the economy with the hope say it will able for stabilize the exchange rates, but nothing no seem for happen.
Yeah, that's a temporary solution. The permanent solution is for diversify the economy. I think that's what the government is doing.
All right.
Spread into agriculture, spread into tourism, spread into the marine sector. So that when we increase the capacity to export, we get enough foreign exchange. Okay. But as we are sitting here, most countries in Africa they need IMF. For the IMF lends the central bank for them support and they build up their reserve and support exchange rate. So it's a concern, and now that day we all for pray for we stabilize the exchange rate so that me and you go gladly we excel they no go increase with the reporter in Leone.
Come over to Abubakar Kamara, we are the National Coordinator for Budget Advocacy Network, band together with ActionAid Salon, Chris and Aiden Oxfam. They ask for the international development partners them cancel salon debts them as they don't launch a campaign inside and get a petition where they want let people then sign to. So now talking about the petition, we want to ask people and for sign to. You say we need about 100,000 signatures for let people and sign to them. That particular petition they for let them pull salon debts them. Why somebody where they listen you for add in signature to that particular petition the way something the person not even know say the country be don't go to us before now?
Absolutely. The concern with people they raise around whether they know on the debt to don't go to it now a legitimate concern. But the reason why they for support this campaign, then Boku. For example, we want every Australian, irrespective of his status, where you go now hospital, let you really receive adequate healthcare services. And for the government to provide adequate healthcare services, it need for invest in resources. So if, for example, the health sector need like $100 million, then we go for pay debt $100 million. And mind you, that debt will go take for pay the debt now obligation. Government not for fail, because if you fail for pay that debt, that means say you don't breach the contract with them sign on the loan I will take. And government definitely say, and if you look at the debt servicing, now one of the mandatory government expenditure, the government need to balance them. But if that resources the whole government for pay, then cancel that debt day, it means say government will be invest, and that make that will go for push for. If they cancel the debt, for let that resources they go towards health and education, because we want to ensure say we picking them receive good quality education, and where people are sick, they go to hospital, then go able to receive the facilities. And then for the government be able to provide that resources, and it need resources. And that's physical space with national economics and column. That is the space, the leverage for let you spend on health and education now referred for. Because let's just put her in a home context. You get your family, you get your picking them. Your picking can sick. Then you don't go to first money. And they say if you go to first, if you not pay, of course we know how to happen, then go hold you to ransom. Absolutely, it affects your ability for take your picking our hospital. So it's the same thing about government. Debt na mandatory payments. So we they ask every civilian that for better health services, for now get more teachers than school, for now get more nurses than at the hospital for take care of people who are sick. For now we are going to hospital, there is more medication, there is equipment, there's resources for government to buy the equipment in there. They are low support this campaign. Okay. And we go push for ensure say the transparency aspect of it is key. Now that make we need to always say debt cancellation, but want a transparent and accountable debt cancellation so that every citizen go see if they cancel debt, who side have resources they go.
How the transparency aspect get for come into play?
Absolutely, now a collective effort of all, including the media, including the respective government institutions. Them, it's about firstly how do we ensure say citizens they get access to information, detailed information in a timely manner in terms of how government they use the resources. Again, follow we all that one into account for ensuring they use the resources as how they're supposed to use them. We can say use them in a very judicious manner. So it's about how do we ensure that we all work with government for ensure say them become transparent and then report and then become accountable on the resources that we don't go take as loan. Right. So for we own campaign here is we want to let them cancel that debt day so that more investment will go into the health and education sector so that the ordinary citizen will receive adequate services.
All right. Let bring you in, Mr. Conte. You don't listen to Abubakar Kamara from BAN, but still they talk about the 2019 bulletin where the total debt servicing as of end of 2020 it be reached to 43% of the domestic revenue, where because of this the fiscal space for government for them spend more on social service delivery, especially on human capital development, where we don't hear lately president we don't they talk about say now one of the area then they way in government they focus on. But because of the heavy debt they are so on the country, government not able to focus or spend more in some of them priority areas. Them now organizations then like BAN, Christian Aid, Action Aid, they call on signature them from citizens. But how owner from the Ministry of Finance will encourage the citizens and citizens for pen down and signature for lift then debts there on salon?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me just clear something. The 43% we Bakari talk about, 43% debt service to revenue, we get for put that into perspective. Now I will talk about IMF debt. IMF debt is not sit down na the balance sheet of the central government. Not to government they pay IMF debt. We know they pay IMF debt from revenue. Okay? Let me understand. Now only if IMF, when they trust Bank of Sierra Leone trust government, now that time they would pay IMF debt. Actually, in 2020, the total debt service of central government to budget revenue that been about 29%, not to 43%. Now, when you include IMF debt, when a BSL, Bank of Sierra Leone, they repay, and not from government revenue, you take for paid IMF debt, now make it go to 43%. So we have to understand that one day. Actually, but once you go beyond 20%, according to that expert, now it's concerned. For instance, as we speak, in 2020, Ghana interest payment to the domestic revenue was 49.5%. Gambia, just interest payment to revenue, domestic revenue, was 31.9%. In fact, in Ghana, in 2021, it came to 53.9% just interest payment. In Gambia, it moved to 27.9%. Ghana, in 2022, then the project say the interest payment to revenue will go to 60%. Now I worry. Ghana almost in a point of debt distress. For Sierra Leone, yes, we are in a what we call high risk of debt distress. But we're not in debt distress because that's our next stage. We're in a high risk of debt distress, but we debt sustainable going forward, according to the IMF. But let's not lose focus of why we're here. We are here to support BAN. Once your debt service don't go beyond 20%, I'm concerned. Because if you take your debt service, we look say now at 28% debt service when I function of interest and principal repayment. then you take wages and salary, put on top that one day. It don't go over 80%. So 80% of your domestic revenue, they take about pay debt service, and also you pay
so
salary.
The
so the remaining 20%, how you go spend in the current for take care of security, you do it. So we are here to partner with bank for support this campaign.
So as now they support this campaign, one of the ministry and I can go to us on the country in behalf. At times people in Kisele, not even know when I can go to some of them debts and they come. Now let people in the part of the campaign and sign up to the petition because they want 100,000 signatures na that petition day. Waiting make salon people where they listen you for be part of that particular petition and go sign up. Why?
The reason is that we have been very transparent. In all we bulletin we don't produce for the past 10 years, go to the Ministry of Finance website. Every year we produce what we call annual debt bulletin. And if you look the 2020 debt bulletin, all the loans that we will contract in 2020 is inside it.
Not to forget take the loan and the people in problem. So
all we bulletin we are transparent.
So Mr. Conte, in as much as we are transparent, people in concern here is the debts and they go up. And because the debts and they go up, whether or not na long-term debts na the country go get for pay. And go taking them debts and the development suppose for reflect. So now that make I ask you say why you feel say people for citizen for sign up to that particular campaign day where they get concerns of taking the debts but not seeing practical work be done with the money.
The reason why people for sign up now because government get a lot to do. If they cancel the debt service where they fall due, it they increase fiscal space. We don't talk about 28% of the domestic revenue we they use for pay debt service. If they cancel them, about 2 trillion leons now going to be available to government for spend. So, and the reason why people for support this initiative, now government need for take the lead for provide energy. If we want to let the private sector expand, we need for spend on energy. Now then they create job, not to government. And government need for spend on health and education. Government has to take the lead. And you know go continue for the tax people heavily. When you increase tax, it gets impact on businesses. So at the end of the day, if we all join and we support that, now very good report this.
Mr. Conte,
it will
then
enable people get better access to services with about 2 trillion loans where this debt service go
for make people get better access to services and with then debt burden they are so on government. It gets anything for do with the hardship where we don't hear people they say they're in the country now?
Well, basically, as I say, once you debt to GDP don't go over 60%, it's a concern. But of course, I don't put it in context saying unique to Sierra Leone.
So again, anything for do with the hardship? Of
course, that is why we are here. Because when the trust debt, there is a cost when our interest payment. And if the interest payments are the impact on the space, on the allocation where government they give to education, to agriculture, to tourism, to health. It's very, very important for me and you to go to hospital. So that is why we are supposed to support this campaign. And what will they do? The question is, if they give this debt relief, what things the government of Sierra Leone they do for make sure say we manage with debt and we become transparent. Bakar is self-aware. Every year they do what we call debt sustainability analysis. And also get what we call medium-term debt strategy. Now a medium perspective to debt management. Now a strategy where they guide we. So that at the end of the day, we know how they take with debt management to as a country. Me now I always say as you don't so last I think about 2 months ago, Bakar invites me and we go now, is it Campanero? I go teach under the support of the Ministry of Finance, because the financial sector released me. I go teach civil society. I remember the president of SLAG was also there. And they asked me all kind of questions about public debt. And I explained to them. Just in December, within a Liberia, I go support them for do DSC, debt sustainability analysis. Me a regional expert. So we get the resources within Sierra Leone for managed public debt. You're right. What we need for that as a country, we need to make sure say we will get them money that they will manage them well. Fiscal, we have to be fiscally disciplined. And at that day, Bakar they push for, not only for Sierra Leone, all the countries in Africa where they go for debt relief It has to be anchored on accountability and transparency, and where we don't do.
So how much una don't try for be accountable? Because in as much as you say una they publish on a bulletin then on a website, how often una can come out to the public, let them know the debt them where governments they go take on behalf of the state?
I think that now that we need to do. We need to increase the visibility as far as interacting with the public, not just the public, but also the banks we will relate with. Okay, so wait till we don't plan for doing going forward. We got to do quarterly engagement with the civil society and of course journalists. But wait till we don't do over time now that we make sure say we bulletin annually we present. It's one of the best in the sub-region. And every year when they take the budget to parliament, the Minister of Finance is always clear as to almost one for borrow the next financial year. Wait till we they do for make sure say we not just take that. For all of these years, we priority first na grant. After grant, we go to refer to highly constitutional debt. And all of the debt they take from World Bank, IMF, ECOWAS Bank, Kuwait Fund, they're all now highly constitutional. They're now they pay over 30, 40 years. And their interest rate is less than 2%. So they give you some space. But the question is, what are we doing as a ministry, as a division to manage public debt?
In terms of then debts there, so Mr. Conte, quickly, not to Tido Bigi then concerned there, because I remember the last time Parliament being concerned as to how the government of Salone they go take different loans them and the agreements and where they can go with na Parliament. Some certain loans them by the tell them they go na Parliament, it don't become effective. Una self na the Ministry of Finance get a role for play for sit down and study some of them loan there so and see which one go be at a lower interest rate. We not go be a burden on government. How best una go try for begin do some of them things there?
Yeah, if I let me tell you, as I say, in line with strategy, debt management strategy, we first priority in a grant. Now, only way we not get grant now money way they go take, we do not then they give you know they pay nothing. Okay, no get obligation. And outside grants now we take highly constitutional debt. Within 2018 to 2021, government don't get grant up to $847 million. Imagine na be loan we go to us across all sectors for education, for energy, for infrastructure, for tourism, for water. $847 million between 2018 to 2021. So that make for tell you say government not they always go for loan na grant. And also get what we call debt, non-debt creating flows. Talk about PPP, like the toll road, and waiting up with the airport extension. Not to debt government go to us. Now private sector, they own money they can't put there. So they shield the budget from debt exposure.
All right, many thanks to Ikana the studio this morning. That's not the voice of the Deputy Director of Public Debt, Charles Conte, been the talk about waiting government to do for ensure say they self join ban. Now the campaign where they don't launch for let people sign up to a petition. Also they ask donor partners them for cancel salon debt them. But as to the wrap of the program, Abubakar Kamara you represent ban and the other body them way really demand this campaign. Waiting people for do now outside them for go for let them sign up to the petition.
Yeah, thank you. We get we websites when www.ban-sl.org. If you go there, you will see the link for sign to the petition. And I encourage every Sierra Leonean them for let them actually sign the petition. And then, based on the concerns within the camp, and one of the reasons why I would also push for transparent and accountable debt cancellation, would also encourage Minister of Finance for let them also increase the public education around debt so that citizens go know on the debt the government will take and for which reason they go take them and which are they intend for invest them, and let them also increase the aspect for letting them become more transparent and accountable on debt cancellation, because these are the concerns, genuine concerns which citizens they raise as to why they hesitate for sign the petition. But of course, we encourage citizens that this petition now in the interest for a share say we improve with health and education sector and ensure say they utilize the resources in a transparent and accountable manner.
All right, thank you very much. Abubakar Kamara, National Coordinator for Budget Advocacy Network. Every day I will talk about a bulletin we put together with ActionAid, Christian Aid and Oxfam, who said and said between 2019 and 2020, the country in public debt reached over 30 trillion loans. So now then they call on citizens then for pen down their signatory to a petition as then they call on the donor partner them for lift salon debt.